Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to today's workshop with me, the candidate coach. And today we're going to focus on how to give great answers to interview questions. When you've done a lot of hard work and you've been looking online for jobs for a long time, you spent time preparing your resume and cover letter, you've sent off those tailored applications, you've maybe had a successful phone interview and you've been invited into a face-to-face interview, whether it's in person or whether it's on a Zoom type call, looking down the barrel of a camera, you have put in so much work most of the time to get to that point. And then you sit across the table from someone and they're going to ask you probably 10 to 15 interview questions. How well you answer those questions is going to have a significant impact on the likelihood of you being offered the job. So today in this webinar workshop, we are calling it how to give great answers to interview questions, how to give great answers. To be honest, what we want is how to give amazing, awesome, knockout, fantastic, mind-blowing answers. Because you don't want to just go into an interview and give average answers to the questions. Anybody can give average answers. Even if you've done no practice at all, you can still give some type of an answer today to an interview question. So in today's workshop, I'm going to show you a couple of formats and a couple of templates that you can use to go away and practice and create great answers to interview questions. Now, even the most experienced business person who's had a very successful career, even the best public speaker and presenter can still really struggle to know how to give great answers to interview questions. Some of the common things we get asked is, how long should an answer be? I feel like my answers are too long. I speak maybe for 3 minutes. Or some people say, I feel like my answers are too long. I speak for 30 seconds. Or is 30 seconds too short? There's a lot of unknowns. So today, hopefully, we're going to debunk some of those unknowns. We are running the chat function for those of you who are watching on our partners site today. Feel free to ask a question and we'll be able to answer it as we go. Also, a welcome to those of you who are watching on our LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels. It's great to have you with us today. We are coming to you live, LOVE live. It is Wednesday, the 17th of November, 11:03 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Different times if you are watching it in different places around Australia. If I look like I'm focusing over here at times today, that's just because that's where my presentation screen is. But let's get into it. We just need to kick off with a couple of workshop housekeeping things. If I do drop off the line for any reason today as the presenter, that's probably not great, but just stay where you are and I should be able to jump back on fairly quickly. Ask lots of questions, as I mentioned. Ask lots of questions as we're going along today, and we should be able to answer them as we go, or we'll come back to them at the end. Take notes as you're going, but you can watch a replay of today's workshop. So a replay of today's workshop will be available on our YouTube channel pretty much 2 minutes after this live streamed workshop completes. A little bit about me. So who am I? My name's James. I'm obviously your presenter today. I'm a director at Smart Recruitment, where I've been since 2005, so coming up to my 16th year in recruitment. In that time, in particular for today's workshop, I've conducted well over 3,000 interviews and over 600 group assessments. So I have seen literally thousands upon thousands of candidates answer interview questions. I've heard amazing answers. I've heard a lot of terrible answers. And so my coaching and training for you today comes from that viewpoint. I've placed over 1,000 people into jobs, and I launched the Candidate Coach, the platform that we're meeting on today, in late 2019, because we wanted more online services for job seekers to be able to access at any time rather than needing to go in and meet with somebody face to face. Alrighty. Just a word on yesterday. I'm actually going to copy and paste this into the chat function now. You can watch a replay of yesterday's workshop. So yesterday's workshop was how to prepare well and perform well at interview. So today we're focusing specifically, as I said, on just how to give great answers. But if you missed yesterday's workshop, I'd really encourage you to go and watch it. I'm just going to drop this into the chat function now. So you can go and watch that. You've got the link there, unless you want to copy it on the screen that you can see. So go and watch that. In the webinar yesterday, if you didn't attend, we talked about all the things you need to do in the lead up to the interview. So what you need to do to prepare in terms of how to get ready, how to actually stand out in the interview room. And then today, as the follow-up session, as I mentioned, we are focusing simply on how do we give great answers to those interview questions once we're sitting down. All right, the most common interview question in the world, what is it? If you would like to type your answer into the comments box now, see if any of you know what the most common interview question in the world is. I use this interview question at every single one of my interviews, whether I'm doing a face-to-face interview, whether I'm doing a phone-based interview. Sometimes I ask this question without even reading it. And the first person in the comment box and the second person in the comments box has got it right. The most common interview question in the world is, tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, this question sounds really friendly, doesn't it? And I normally say, I'm on the phone, having a look at your resume. Are you able to speak at the moment? Great. Well, just to start off with, can you tell me a bit about yourself? Doesn't that sound friendly? Sounds like a really nice call. It's a friendly call. And the person's thinking, this is a nice way to start things off. And it is. It's a great way to start off the conversation. However, this is your first opportunity to really impress. So don't drop your guard on this question. What would you say right now if I was interviewing you and I said, just to start off with, tell me a little bit about yourself? Have you got a really succinct and confident answer? Do you know whether I want to hear about your professional background or your personal background? Do I want to hear about what you were doing in your job, or do I want to hear what you were doing this morning? Do I want to know about your family? Do you know? Because particularly if you're going for any role in customer service, business support, any role that has interaction with customers or business clients, the moment you start talking, the moment you open your mouth and start talking, the interviewer's ears are pricking up and they're listening to how you deliver and how you speak and how organized you are. So this sounds like a friendly question, but if you don't answer it well, then your first impression is not going to be great. If you do answer it well, your first impression can be top shelf. So I want you to write down the following. Get out a pen and paper, open up another window on your computer, open up your notepad on your phone, but I want you to write down the following. Write down number 1, your name. Write number 2, and I don't want you to answer these, I just want you to write them down because then you can come back after today's workshop and you can answer them. Number 2, I want you to write an overview of your work history. Number 3, your top 3 skills. And finally, the type of work that you are looking for. The type of work that you're looking for. So I'll just give you a moment to write that down, or maybe even take a screenshot, take a photo. I'll sip my long black. As I mentioned, you can watch this replay of today's workshop again on our YouTube channel or on our LinkedIn page. So why am I asking you to write these things down? Well, we're creating an elevator pitch. So you might have heard about an elevator pitch previously, particularly if you've worked in sales. It's very common in sales. And an elevator pitch is what it says on the screen there. It's a brief, persuasive speech or statement. It's brief, but it's persuasive. So when might having an elevator pitch come in handy when you're looking for work? Well, all the time, because the most common interview question, tell me a little bit about yourself, a great answer to this question can be your elevator pitch. All right, so this is the elevator pitch. This is what we do, as I've said before. The reason it's called an elevator pitch is it comes from the story of, imagine you went and jumped in an elevator, got in at ground floor, walk. You press level 30, and in walks behind you the person you're meeting on level 30. And they say, as we're going up in the elevator, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? So you have that time as the elevator's going up, a short period of time where you want to get across some important information. So we want to say our name, who we are, an overview of our work history. We want to mention 2 or 3 things here. 2 or 3 things. As I said, it's an overview. We can't mention a lot here. We need to keep it specific to the job as well. So if we want to talk about an overview of our work history, specific to the job. Our top 3 skills. Now, with top 3 skills, I want you to avoid listing communication, team player, and hard worker. Don't list all of those. 2 of your skills, this is really important. I want you to have at least 2 of your top 3 skills being what we call tangible skills. They're hard skills. So one of your top 3 skills might be that you're an experienced C++ programmer. You have qualifications in C++ programming. That is a tangible skill. Something that's a softer skill is I'm also a good public speaker or I'm a good communicator. But, saying you're a good communicator or saying you're a good team player or saying you're a hard worker, it's all well and good. Everybody can say that, but we can't really measure it. Whereas if you say, I've got 3 years experience as a C++ programmer, that's quantifiable, that's measurable, that's a hard skill. We then want to know what you're looking for. So what type of work are you looking for at the moment? So I'm going to show you one now that I've prepared earlier. I don't want you to be intimidated by this. It's a hypothetical one that I've written myself, and I've been an experienced recruiter for 15 years, and I coach people on how to do this. So my elevator pitch, if I was going for work, should be good. And here's what it would be. Hi, my name's James Whitcomb. For the last 15 years, I've worked in recruitment, beginning as a recruitment consultant before progressing onto management and then being a director, which is my current position. My top skills would include interviewing candidates in a way that uncovers their true motivation, public speaking and presenting, as well as coaching and training candidates to ensure they're giving themselves the best chance of getting a job. I'm currently looking for a new role where I can focus more of my time on training, coaching, and assisting candidates as opposed to being a recruiter. So that would be my elevator pitch if I was looking for work at the moment. And it sounds quite good. It rolls off the tongue. And it might sound to you, oh, wow, that's had a lot of effort go into it. But when you break it down into those 4 categories, it's really quite straightforward. It really is quite straightforward. So your elevator pitch, what I want you to do is go away and create your elevator pitch. You've only got to answer those 4 things. Answer those 4 things. Your name, overview of your work history, top 3 skills, and the type of work you're looking for. I want you to then start saying it out loud to yourself. And the first time you'll think, oh, I can maybe say that a little bit better. So go and rewrite it a few times. Rewrite it until it is perfect. Now, you might need a couple of different elevator pitches because if you are looking for administration work, but you'd also be happy with retail work, you need 2 different elevator pitches because you wouldn't give your administration elevator pitch to the retail job and likewise the other way. So have a couple of elevator pitches, but rewrite it until you get to the point that it is perfect. Once it is perfect, what I want you to do is to print it out. I want you to stick a copy up on your fridge. I want you to have a copy on the kitchen bench. I want you to have a copy in your handbag. I want you to have a copy on your phone. Because if a recruiter calls you and says, hi, I'm just looking at your resume. Have you got 10 minutes for a chat? And you say yes. And the recruiter says, well, look, just to start off with, can you tell me a bit about yourself? You think, oh, this is my elevator pitch. I've forgotten it. But if it's on your phone or if it's printed out and it's sitting on the desk in front of you or it's stuck on the fridge in front of you, then you can look at it and it can come flooding back to you and you can read it out if you have to. So finally, the final thing we want to do is we want to use it. We want to use it. So rewrite your elevator pitch, get it to the point that it's perfect, and then go out and use it. And I can guarantee you that if you give a really good answer to that first interview question, then like with the first impression of when you meet with somebody and they're well presented, or you meet with somebody and they smile, they look you in the eye, they give you a firm handshake, then you are going to be off at a level to begin with that is really where the top candidates are going to be. And if you start at that level, then it's much harder to fall down. Likewise, if you give a really weak answer to this question, you missed a great opportunity, but it's also much harder for you to then start to build things up to the top level. So go away, write your elevator pitch, practice your elevator pitch, and then finally use your elevator pitch. Okay. How to stand out at interview. If you are in my workshop Someone's asking, has this workshop been delayed in the chat? No, I'm coming to you live. We are not being delayed at all. It's 11:15 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It might be different time, obviously, Queensland, South Australia, or Perth, or if you're watching in New Zealand, which some people might be. There is one rule. Preparation is key. And if you're in yesterday's webinar, I talked about this a lot. Preparation is absolutely key. So, a candidate who answers questions confidently gives the interviewer a great sense that they are a top performer. So if you imagined you were if you were interviewing somebody, and when they answer questions, they look you in the eye, they nod, they smile, but they deliver a great, confident answer. You start to think, wow, this person, they are confident in their answers. I'm getting the impression they're going to be really good at the job. Whereas if someone gives really weak answers that aren't very strong, you cannot help but feel, oh, gee, they just weren't very confident with those answers, were they? And if they're not really confident with those answers, how do I know that they're going to do a good job? So we need to give confident answers to give a sense that we're going to be a great performer at interview. All right, let's get stuck into the two types of interview questions, and I'm going to give you some real examples. So we've got two types of interview questions. The first one, you would have heard them before, behavioral interview questions. Very common. And then the second most common type of questions are technical questions, where we're going to be asking you specifically about your skills and experience and how you actually do the job. How do you actually perform the actual task? Behavioral questions we're going to look at first. They focus on how you've handled various situations in the workplace and reveal your character traits, abilities, and your skills. So the key line there is, how have you handled various situations? We're going to be asking for examples in these questions. So common examples. Tell me about a time you gave great customer service. Let me ask you now, if I asked you that question, would you be able to answer it? Most roles, even if you're going for a job as an accountant, you might be asked this at interview. Tell me about a time you gave great customer service. Do you have a really good answer prepared at the moment that can draw on the situation, the task, the outcome, the results? Does it go into detail? Can you give a really good answer to that question? Because really you should be. If you've worked in any job before, you should be able to give a really good answer to this question. Tell me about a time you've disagreed with your manager. This is a harder question, isn't it? We've got to think, I don't really know if I have disagreed with my manager. I've always been very courteous and very polite. But you need to have an answer to this question. You need to have an answer. So when we are being asked these questions, we need to use the STAR technique. You may have heard of the STAR technique before, but this is a fantastic way for you to answer questions to make sure you're giving a really succinct answer. So I'm going to share with you, and you'll see the article link on the bottom, because I feel this is a really comprehensive article, what the STAR technique is and how you can use it to answer interview questions. So the STAR technique is a method of answering questions that has 4 steps. And I'm going to go through these in a bit more detail. But first of all, situation. So we're describing the situation and where it took place. Secondly, the task. Explain the task and what the goal was. We then talk about the action. So what did you actually do? And the result. What happened as the result of the action you took? So let's break these 4 things down. So the situation, we need to set the scene here. We need to set the scene of the story by giving a context and the background of the situation. If you're asked about teamwork, your response should include the project details, who you are collaborating with, when you undertook the project, and the location at the time. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that all candidates make, even if they're using the STAR technique, is they don't provide enough detail. So as it says there, if you're in a team, you need to provide details, dates, times, location, number of people involved, budget that was involved. So often candidates don't give enough detail to their interview questions. You really need to make sure that you are doing that. So S is for situation, and in some ways, S is for setting the scene. Setting the scene and giving context. All right, T, task. So describe your exact role or responsibilities in the situation. Make sure the hiring manager knows what you specifically were assigned to do rather than what everyone did. So if we go back to that project example, if there was a project to build a new product, and that's what the aim of the whole team was, that's the whole team's collective aim. What did you personally have to do in what was your role in the team? What were your individual tasks? That's the T. What were your individual duties? What were your individual responsibilities? What did you have to do yourself that then fed into the team's outcome? We want to know here about you, not what the rest of the team had to do. Action. All right. So this is the big one. So what did you actually do? So S&T, setting the scene and the task. Situation and task, but it's still about setting the scene. A, we finally get to action. What did we actually do? What did you do here? So this step is probably the most important, as it says, part of the story. Here you explain how you handled the difficult situation or you conquered the problem. Say whether you did it alone or together as a team. What you're trying to communicate in your assessment of the situation and your response to the problem, as well as how you got the team involved. Share as many details. Again, we need details so the interviewer can follow you. As you do, avoid acronyms and company-specific jargon. So this should be where you spend the amount of your time on the answer. This is where you should spend most of the time. Here, you're actually talking about, okay, this is what I did. These are the steps I took. This is the input. This is, and we'll get to a moment, we'll get to results, but this is where you spend most of your time. And then we finish up with the R for results. So close out the story by stating the positive outcome of your actions and what lessons you learned. If possible, quantify the results and show the effects of your actions. Examples may include a 10% increase in sales, getting repeat business, or saving your team 5 hours of work in a week. This is really important. Now, sometimes the result might not be a great one, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. We want to know what the result is. And I will be very strong on using numbers and details if you can. The more details you go into with your results, the more believable you're going to be. The better your answer is going to be. All right, let's have a look. Let's have a look at one I prepared earlier. Or not I prepared, but here's an example. So this is the question. And it's being asked to a nurse. So pretend you're a nurse. You're going for another nursing job in a different hospital. Describe a time when you handled a difficult situation at work. How did you react? Now you'd think, oh, for a nurse, this should be easy, right? Handle lots of difficult situations. But how do we give a great answer here? Let's have a look. All right. In my last job as a night nurse, one of my colleagues quit after securing a job with a top private hospital. So that's the situation. That's our S. The situation, another nurse has quit. Let's look at the task. Though I was managing a ward full of patients, I was assigned this one patient who didn't want to be admitted. So that was the task. What are the actions? He wanted to bolt out of the room. I made myself available to the patient, discussed with him the reason he was being admitted, and assured him he would receive 24/7 attention and good care. So in the green there, that's our A. That's the action that the nurse took. And then let's look at our results. The patient finally calmed down and agreed to spend the next 3 days under observation. He was discharged on the 3rd day, and the wife personally thanked me for handling someone she knew to be extremely stubborn and difficult. So we can see it all there. The red, that's our S. That's our situation. The blue is our task, what she was tasked to do. The green was the actions that she took. And the purple is the result. That's a very short answer. That is a very short answer. I would probably encourage the person to give even more details there. Go into more details. But that's a nice, succinct way of seeing what the STAR technique can do. All right, let's move on to the other type of questions. Technical interview questions. As I said before, technical interview questions. Whoops. We want to know about your skill, qualification, and experience to do the job. So we're not necessarily looking for behaviors or traits or other types of competencies or how you react. We want to know what skills, qualification, and experience you have to do the job. Just going to jump in. We've had a question that's come through in the comments box, so I might just pause and read it out because it looks like a good one. This person says, I do a lot of these things in my interview, but I got feedback once that I sounded scripted. What would be your advice? That's a really good question. That is a really good question. First of all, I would say if you are sounding scripted, it means you've put in a lot of effort. So I would appreciate that as an interviewer that you've put in a lot of effort. So hopefully that's been recognized in some way. I would much rather have a candidate sound too scripted because they've practiced a lot than sound unscripted and unprepared. What I would then concentrate on is your delivery. So are you speaking to the person who's interviewing like they're a real person? Are you being conversational? Are you talking? Are you using body language? Or are you just, if you just repeat something you've memorized, it will sound too scripted. So you need to pause and you need to give your answer as if you were talking to the interviewer rather than giving them a speech. That can be the biggest difference. If you sound like you're giving someone a speech, it will sound scripted. Thank you for that question. So, technical interview questions. Let's have a look. Let's look at some examples. So, example number 1, tell me about the accounting software packages you are most familiar with. So, obviously, this would be a question to somebody who is going for a job as an accountant. Number 2, which sales methodology do you find is most effective? This would be a question asked for somebody going for a sales job. So if you are looking for either of those 2 jobs, could you answer these questions at the moment? Because again, we want to see some details here. We want to see some details. So if number 1, we need to focus on answering the question. This sounds really silly, but a lot of job seekers can start to answer the question and then they can go off on a little bit of a tangent and a little bit of an example and they go off talking about something else and they never end up actually answering what the question was. And that's a real cross if you do that. That's a cross against that question because we need to know that you understand the question and you can answer the question. You've got good attention to detail and we don't want to have to repeat the question because you wandered off. So focus on answering the question. When you finish your answer, just have a quick pause and think, did I answer the question or do I need to add something there? And if you're not sure, occasionally you could say to the interviewer, does that answer the question? If they say, yes, it does, then they might say, no, I was looking to hear a bit more about this. So focus on answering the question that you've been asked. You might go along to interview and you might think, I've got all these great skills and experience. But if you're not actually asked about that one thing you wanted to talk about, a lot of candidates try to bring it into an answer and it's not relevant and it ruins the answer. So focus on answering the question. Number 2, provide details. Use the STAR technique again, or who, what, why, when, and where. So if we go back to that question around the sales methodology before, tell me about your preferred sales methodology and why you like to use it. Provide details. This is my favorite sales methodology. This is why I like to use it. This is where I have used it. This is when I have used it. This is how it has been effective. So follow up with details and examples. It is so important. Give even further detail or ask if it's okay to do so. Overwhelmingly, most candidates do not give enough detail in their answers at interview. So give a lot of detail. And then you can actually pause and say to the interviewer, would you like me to go into further detail here? If you do so, they will tell you whether they want you to or not. If they do, absolutely fantastic. Go into further detail. The more detail you actually go into, the more expertise you are actually showing. Think of it that way. Try to relate the answer to the job or company you are interviewing with. So you need to have done your research here into the company and into the job. But if you can relate your answer to what the job you are going for is going to do, that is fantastic. You can actually show the interviewer what you're going to do in the job. All right. So, from today, preparation is key, preparation is your friend, preparation you can do. Everything that I'm showing you today, I'm hoping that you can do. I'm hoping that I'm not sharing with you things that you think are unreasonable, because there's a really big difference when we meet candidates between those who put in preparation for their interview answers and those who don't. Now, if you're still wanting more assistance, jump onto our candidate coaching platform. We've got 2 interviews on how to prepare and perform well at interview. Episode 8 is getting the basics right for interview, and episode 9, taking your interview from good to great. On these videos, you will hear from 6 or 7 different recruiters from 6 or 7 different companies, and they will share with you their tips, their advice on what they like candidates to do to perform well at interview. So I'd really encourage you to go and watch these episodes. All right. Our next workshop next week, we're going to talk specifically about how you can land a graduate job in Australia. So if you're looking for a graduate job or you're planning to look for a graduate job over the next 6 to 12 months, come along to next week's workshop, wherever you're watching today's, next Tuesday at 11 a.m. But before we go, a word on what else is available to you on your candidate coaching platform. We have a whole range of resources here for you. Video coaching, resume and cover letter templates, interview questions, everything you can see on your screen is available to you for free. So go and jump in there and it'll give you the very best chance of being prepared to find work. Before we get into the last part of today, I would love to invite you to go and complete our 2-minute feedback survey. This is really important to us. We love to get your feedback because that's how we know how to prepare upcoming workshops. We ask you what you thought of today's workshop in a couple of questions. We ask you what other workshops you would like to know more about. So please complete that. Also, we'd love you to follow us on our LinkedIn page. So please do follow us on our LinkedIn page because we post everything on there in terms of what's coming up. I'm just going to jump back into the chat because we've had another question come through. Can you please tell me a little bit more about how to answer strength-based questions? I need to know a little bit more about what you mean by strength-based questions. So maybe type that in. As you're typing that in, if you are being asked a question around tell me what your strengths are, if that's what you're referring to there, what I would do again is I would refer to your tangible skills. I would refer to your hard skills. I would refer to the things that you can do really well that are technical, unless you're going for a customer service job. I wouldn't talk about things like being a team player or a hard worker or somebody who's punctual. I would talk about my strength as being, if I'm going for a sales role, one of my strengths is in my last job, I hit my sales target every single month. I take extreme pride in making sure that I hit every single target that I'm working towards. So answer your strengths and think about the job you're going for. Give that answer based on tangible strengths that are going to be really relevant to the job that you are going for. I hope that helps to answer your question. All right, we will finish today with this video like we do with all of our candidate coaching workshops, a short video on how to look after your mental health when you're looking for work. So today's workshop will conclude at the end of this video. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you've gained some value from it. Bye-bye for now.
If you're not feeling terrific at the moment and you feel like your mental well-being has taken a little bit of a dip, please remember this is not going to last forever. There's lots you can do to manage your mental health and get back on top of it. I am Dr. Sarah Barker. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've worked in workplace mental health with Black Dog Institute for the past 7 years. A lot of adults and young people, mainly with anxiety, depression, trauma as well, a range of issues, and many who are looking for work and undergoing that process of trying to find employment. Looking for work causes mental strain because our identity is tied up with our work. Work gives us meaning, it gives us purpose, it gives us company and connection. So it's stressful for lots of reasons looking for work, and it can take a toll on our mental health. It's really important for us to be aware of the signs that our well-being and our mental health might be dropping. Probably the biggest sign is changes in behaviour. So that might be changes in the way we're thinking or talking to ourselves. We might be saying things like, who would employ me? I'll never get a job. We might be really down on ourselves and really hard and critical on ourselves when normally we're not so hard and critical. We might also, in our relationships, change our behaviour. We might be more snappy or more irritable with people that we love, that normally we might be a little bit irritable sometimes, but not irritable in that way. Losing interest in things that usually sparked us and ignited us and gave us joy. So perhaps usually we like walking the dog, and suddenly we start thinking, I can't be bothered walking the dog today. That sort of thing, those changes in behaviour are really significant because they tell us that something's different, and if we're noticing, I suppose, more than one of those and it's affecting the way we feel, and this is over a period of say 2 weeks or longer, then it's a really good idea to have a chat to a GP that you trust, and find out what might be going on, have a discussion and see if there's any physical reasons for that, or if perhaps your mental health and wellbeing might be able to do with a little bit of extra support, and then the GP can refer you on to see a psychologist, a counsellor, whoever is most appropriate for you. There are so many great things you can do to look after your mental health when you're looking for work, and it's really important that you do. My very top tip would be really talking kindly to yourself and being compassionate with yourself. I think when we're looking for work, we can have a lot more questions like, will I ever get a job? Will I ever be employed? It can feel like this could go on forever. So being kind to ourselves and saying things like, it will work out. There will be a day, my efforts will be rewarded. It will just take time. I just need to keep trying. Reminding yourself of your strengths. And that might even be tapping into people you love and asking them what your strengths are, because sometimes it's harder to find them when our mood's a bit low and we're feeling more worried. We can be harder on ourselves. I think that routine is really, really important to our well-being. When we're looking for work, we mightn't have such a regular routine because there mightn't be a 9 to 5 start and finish time for a job, or there isn't. So instead, thinking about looking for work as a job in itself can be helpful. Having a start time and a finish time can be really helpful, and some set tasks that you hope to achieve that day. Purpose is really important too. So purpose might come through routine, but it can also come through other things. Meaning's really important, and our work gives us meaning. So when we're looking for work, meaning mightn't feel like it's there as much. Part of what we can do is infuse those tasks with meaning. So I am doing these things today, I'm looking for work, and that is meaningful in itself because there's an end goal to this. It will be something that's good for me and good for the people that I love as well. Some excellent resources for looking after well-being when looking for work are the Headgear App. The Headgear App is free, it's evidence-based, it's developed by Black Dog Institute, and it is fun to use. It uses mindfulness, so a technique to really help us relax and reduce physiological arousal, which can often occur when we're feeling anxious. It's got a 30-day challenge, which is just short, bite-sized little challenges to extend your well-being and grow your well-being, and that can be really extra important when we're looking for work. There are also some really terrific resources available through the Black Dog Institute. One of them is a beautiful self-care plan that is encourages you to think about your top coping tips, the things that personally work best for you, that are positive coping strategies. Another really good resource is through Beyond Blue, and they've got some excellent resources to look after mental health while looking for work, and also when people are recently out of work as well. Probably time to seek professional assistance when you notice your mood is lower and you're feeling more down than usual, when you're worrying more and perhaps worrying excessively about things that you wouldn't normally worry about, and perhaps in your relationships too, when you're more tense with people and perhaps more snappy or irritable. All of these are signs that perhaps our mood is not in the greatest space, and our well-being is not in the greatest space, and that it can be a great idea then to chat to your GP, who can then refer you to an appropriate person to help you strengthen your well-being. It's very common for people to have a dip, but please know that that's not going to last forever, and that there's lots you can do through looking after yourself, but also through getting access to professional support that can really give you a boost again and get you back feeling good as you're looking for work.